Welcome to our Small Business Success Series. This particular webinar is on business recovery. If you have a business that's been struggling for a couple years and you need to stabilize it and recover, this orientation work or webinar will be able to get you started on that. This is designed to prepare you for the adventures of recovery, if you will, or to scare you and give you a little reality check on the risks of recovery. So let's get started with Small Business Recovery Orientation webinar. My name is Bob Talty. I'm a SCORE counselor, and I was born in 1946, launched the baby boomers. Grew up a champion in 1964, a roller skating champion and national level. And the only reason I bring that up is when you get a few minutes after this webinar is over, think about 5 or 6 characteristics of a champion in anything, to include business and what a business leader, some of the characteristics that they may need. Had a retail career for a while, launched a couple consulting business, helped shape the telecommunications industry during the 70s and 80s, was VP of marketing several years for NEC Corporation, global electronics company for North America, South America, and Canada. Restarted my consulting businesses for a couple of years, moved to the food service business. So I went from high tech to pizza, which was kind of a cultural shift, and taught college for several years, marketing. And then for the last 5 or 6 years, been with Dayton SCORE. So those are some of my credentials. So you have a little bit of confidence in some of the material that we have in the webinar. Success begins with your current situation. We used to assess the situation of businesses years ago with several different benchmarks, as you see here on the screen: stability and maturity. As you may know today, those are not really viable anymore. You're either in startup, you're either on the offense and growing your business, or by default, you are in fact in recovery and survival. This particular webinar is designed to provide orientation for stabilizing and recovering a struggling business. SCORE provides live workshops and simple steps series for each of these situational categories. Small business impact on America. As a small business owner, you're a part of an elite group of businesses that really drive the American economy. I'm a big small business proponent and enjoy working with small businesses of all types and sizes. And as you can see here, statistically, small businesses drive a lot of the gross domestic product in America and make a significant impact in the American marketplace. Small business success drivers, either failure factors or success drivers. A little perspective, if you will. There are 6 things that impact your business from the outside that are really out of your control, but in most cases are manageable or preventable. And we're not going to talk about those today because we discuss those in the webinar series introduction webinar, what we call Marketplace Perspectives. So if you review that one quickly, you'll see a brief description of each of those. But these are elements that impact your business from the outside, and part of the planning process will be to create some contingency plans on the 3 or 4 of these that may impact your business. Your success is also impacted by some internal symptoms that are self-imposed, if you will. And those basically are what we call challenges that fall into 2 categories. Business performance challenges, which are front office, front line, top line impact, and back office challenges. And we're going to talk about those more throughout the recovery process today. At SCORE, we use a very simple 4-step process to business stabilization and recovery. First is discovery. Then we have assessment. It's hard to plan without assessing first. And then we do some planning using a new contemporary planning model. And then we implement the plan and replicate the plan over a period of time. Why is process and plan important? Well, we're not going to go over all these, but you can see quickly that having a process in place and putting a plan in place can provide many benefits for you and really everybody in your business. Let's talk about step 1, discovery. There's really 2 pieces to that. If you go to your forms package on the webinar description page on our website, you can download these forms and work through them. The first part of discovery is what we call the discovery worksheet. And by filling out those questions and putting a yes or no next to each of those, you can determine if you are in growth or in recovery. That's just kind of a checklist that can help you determine where you're at. The most important discovery piece is to determine what your leadership DNA is. And there is a profile worksheet in the forms package on the description page for this webinar. And if you download that, you can go through that with me at this time. So on that form, you will see a chart or a graph, if you will. And what we're going to do here is very quickly determine what your business DNA is. And so we want you to take this really quick little profile, and then we want you to back it up with a more scientific DISC profile. We start by using the vertical line that goes up and down, and that deals with your responsiveness. And you need to be careful because here we have low responsiveness at the top, and we have high responsiveness at the bottom. So if you're a people results-oriented person and you're highly responsive to people, you would put a dot there like I've done here. If you're a low responsive person, you're kind of closed, more abstract, more structured, more task-oriented, you'd want to put a dot up at the top of this line. Then we go across on the horizontal line, and you see over on the right that we have a highly assertive person, which is the opposite of responsiveness. And over on the left, we have a low assertiveness person. So if you do have high assertiveness and you're kind of an extrovert, you place a dot over there. If you're kind of an introvert, you would place a dot over on the left-hand side. And then what you do is you simply connect them and determine what your DNA is. So basically we have this little unscientific profile that you've just taken, and then we'd like you to Google DISC profile websites and take one of the free DISC profiles. They try to sell you additional information, but you don't need to buy that. Just take the basic profile and they will email you the profile. And you see how the DISC profile overlays our profile. The bottom line of all this is we want to determine if you are a business performance DNA, which is what we call front office, which are typically leaders, and they are should be responsible for all types of business functions that touch the customer, that touch the marketplace, such as sales, marketing, customer service, all those things that have direct impact on the customer and the marketplace. Back office DNA people are analyticals and amiables, and they should be in business functions that are internally focused, that deal with managing the business, operating the business, and they are typically managers. So the bottom line here is, and the reason we do this is we like to determine what your DNA is and put the right person in the right place, doing the right things at the right times. One of the major problems we find in business as core counselors is that they have the wrong person in the wrong place, doing the wrong things at the wrong time. So it's kind of the bicycle principles. The back office manager DNA folks need to be managing those back office functions, which provide the power to the business. And the front office people need to be leading the business and controlling and watching the landscape. And if you're by yourself, it's an allocation of time and setting priorities. If you have a team, it's creating a balanced team of front office folks and back office folks. So step number one is the discovery phase, and we talked about there's two things. Do the discovery worksheet to determine what your current situation is, and do the DNA profile worksheet and the DIS profile. From discovery, we move into assessment. It's hard to plan anything unless we assess where we're at. So in your forms package on the webinar description page on our website, you will find what we call a small business recovery assessment tool. That's a little bit more complicated than the discovery worksheet. So here you want to go down through all of these business elements. This is where we begin to introduce the business elements. And you put a 1, 2, or 3 priority, one being problem that you need to solve to stabilize the business and survive. 2 being a need that you need to compete and position the business for growth, and opportunities that you need to identify that may be able to speed the recovery process or in fact enhance it. And here we like to get you to focus on 5 or 6 things, no more than 10, although there's a lot of elements on the assessment tool. It's important that you focus your energy and your resources on only a few things at a time. And the first time through the process, the recovery process, we focus on the highest priority things, and we build a tactical recovery plan, as you can see here. That may be a 3 to 6 month plan. And as you can see at the bottom, planning is no longer a singular obligatory event. It's an ongoing collaborative accumulative process based on a situational planning cycle. And if your situation is recovery, you're going to want to be planning in a 3 to 6 month cycle. So again, we focus on 5 to 6 things, and we identify those in the assessment tool. Then we move them to the planning tool, and we scale the planning tool down to those highest priority challenges, and then we go about implementation. When you download the planning model from the webinar description page on our website, you will find that it's a little different model, and it's evolved from planning models of the past. As you see here on the right, we started in the 1940s with basic marketing plans that were push and pull. And then in the 80s, folks got together and said, gee, business plans ought to be external focused on the marketplace and the customer as opposed to internal focused. And that was a major advancement. And then later on in the 2000s, we created a more contemporary model, and you can see some of the characteristics here. First of all, it's aligned with customer lifecycle experience. You can see the 4 colored boxes there. If you want to know more about this important element, you need to review the webinar series introduction model, marketplace perspectives, and there's a complete description there of the customer lifecycle. It's an integrated planning model. It integrates all elements of the business, so you don't have small sales plans, marketing plans, and so forth. It's designed to be a collaborative model so everybody in the business can work on the plan together and collaborate. Its basis is proven core business principles with relevant business strategies piled on top of it. This fairly simple plan has 3 parts. It's very applicable to today's marketplace and business environment. It's modular and scalable to type and size of business. And it's very comprehensive. It can be used for planning today in recovery, and then it can be used planning in the years to come for growth and other planning initiatives. So you can use it throughout your business life cycle. The business plan has a brand. It's called BusinessWorks, and it's basically divided into an introduction and then 2 parts, what we call Performance Works, which is the front office, and you can see the basic functions of the Performance Works or front office part of the plan. And Productivity Works, and you can see the basic business functions in the back office part of the plan. Again, it's designed to create a virtual balanced business or what we call survivable business infrastructure, and it's a collaborative planning process. Let's talk about the parts real quick. The first is the executive overview. When you preview the planning model, you'll see there's a title page, legal business name with mission, a brief offering definition with a vision, plan, scope, duration, purpose, and structure. We're not going to go into that in detail here. You can see that on the model. Then the second part of the plan is what we call Performance Works or front office, and that begins with Section 1, Organizational Leadership Strategies. Section 2 is Situation Analysis. That's the traditional SWOT analysis. Section 3 talks about segmentation, defining who our customer is, where they are, and how we're going to approach them. We call that on target. Section 4 is traditional go-to-market pushing strategies. We call that on demand. That's business functions designed to push the product out into the marketplace. Section 5 is competitive advantage pulling strategies, or what we call in play. Those are strategies designed to pull the customer in. Section 6 of the plan are what we call influencing strategies. That's at the touch point where you're pushing and pulling, and that's a business function like sales, events, where you're face-to-face with a customer. As we said, each part of the plan, Performance Works, is built on proven best practices and core business principles, and then we pile on some tested newer business principles, and we apply some solutions and strategies. There's also a business performance budget available, and you can get that through one of our recovery workshops or by calling the SCORE office. Let's move to business operations. The third part of the plan starts with management strategies as opposed to leadership, people leadership in the front office. Here we're talking about resource management. Section 2 is administrative strategies, um, things like business structure, the planning process itself. Section 3 is human resources. Section 4 is financial strategies, and everything that deals with that. Section 5 is operations, and Section 6 is productions. Again, the planning model, productivity works. This section builds on proven best practices, tested core business principles, and valuable solutions. And again, you can find a business operation budget to go along with it by attending one of our live workshops or notifying the SCORE office. So once you do your discovery and once you do your assessment and begin to build the plan, scale it to your business down to 5 or 6 core things you're going to do to stabilize the business. Then we need to implement the plan. You review it with everybody, you communicate it with everybody in the business, you implement the plan. You, of course, measure its results, and then you replicate the process with the next highest priority challenges. So that's the next step, implementation. So I'll conclude with our formula for success at SCORE. We use a proven planning model, and we use a simple 4-step process to business recovery, and we integrate that with counseling, documentation, resources, networking, and other solutions that support the process. Well, the ball's kind of in your court. We hope this webinar has given you a little orientation and into stabilizing your business and positioning it for growth. And again, we recommend that you go to the webinar series, a wrap-up webinar. It's a short one, about 10 minutes, and it talks about how to get a hold of your local SCORE office and what the next steps might be. Thanks a lot. Small business success impacts America. I'm a small business fan myself, and as you can see here, the statistics, small business, a lot of family businesses, minority businesses, really generate a lot of the gross domestic product in America. And I wish the federal government would invest more in small business, but that's another issue. So you're a part of a group, the Great American Small Business Crusade, if you will, and Dayton SCORE is here to help. Small business success drivers, these can either be success factors or failure factors. There are 6 basic forces of impact that can impact your business from the outside. Unfortunately, not much you can do about those. They're either controllable, manageable, or preventable. Society, events, economy, marketplace, policy, and innovation. We talk about those in detail in the introductory webinar, Marketplace Perspectives. So if you're interested in that, you may want to look at that. webinar and get a little more information on that. Your business is also impacted by internal symptoms, if you will. These are often self-inflicted, unfortunately, and they fall in basically two categories: business performance challenges and business operations challenges. And that's what we're going to talk about today in growing a business. In growing a business, there's 4 simple steps, if you will. First is discovery, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in this webinar. And then you can't do any planning really in business until you do an assessment and isolate your challenges. And then we create a small plan, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we implement the plan, and then we replicate the process. So basically, this webinar will go over these steps really quickly. And if you want more detail on each of these, I suggest that you go to one of our workshops or our Simple Steps to Business Growth series of 5 workshops, which actually help you work through these steps and actually build a growth plan. Planning is important and process is important. These are some of the reasons. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but they provide a common direction for everybody in the business, whether you have 2 employees or 20. They prevent mistakes. They integrate success elements. They provide for resource management. And the process is replicable over and over again, so you can continue to do the assessment and planning process and continue to grow the business. Let's talk about discovery first. There's really 2 elements to discovery. The first is what we call leadership DNA. And if you download the forms package, you'll see a leadership DNA form in there. And we always like to start there. We always start with the owner of the business or the leader, and that's where business success really begins. We need to find out what your business DNA is and get the right person in the right position doing the right things at the right time. One of the main problems that we find at SCORE in businesses is they have the wrong person in the wrong place doing the wrong things at the wrong time. So part of discovery will be finding out who you are, and the second part of discovery will be a few questions that kind of focus in on your business and help you determine if you are in recovery or the growth mode. So let's start with the leadership profile. And if you've already downloaded the worksheet, you can get it out. If not, you can get it out at a later date. And if you'll notice the horizontal line going up and down in the middle, we're going to take a very quick, non-scientific, personality profile test here to determine your DNA, your business DNA. So if you look, we got low responsiveness above and we got high responsiveness below. So don't get confused by that. What you do is you put a dot on that line that represents your personal responsiveness. If you're a highly responsive person, you would put the dot at the bottom like you see here. If you feel you're not a very responsive person, you would put a dot at the top. It's always good to have somebody else who knows you, a spouse or a wife, take this profile for you also, so we kind of get a second opinion. Now let's go to the horizontal line, and you see here we're kind of measuring assertiveness. On the right side we have a high assertiveness. On the left side we have low assertiveness. So if you're a very assertive person, you would put a dot to the right like we've done here. If you're not a very assertive person, kind of quiet, introvert, you would put a dot on the left, and you can see the descriptions there. And then what you do is kind of tie the two dots that you've placed together, and you come up with your profile. The one we show here as a sample is my personal profile, and I'm what's called an expressive or an otter, if you will. And then what I'd like you to do is take a little more scientific shot at this by Googling disc profile websites. There's also some websites on the bottom of your worksheet, and you can go there and take a disc profile. They are free, so ask for the free profile, and they'll send you an email with a free profile. They try to sell you a more comprehensive profile, but you don't have to buy it. And you see how the disc profile lines up with ours. So if you're a high dominance or a high influence, you're a business performance DNA. If you're a high compliance and a high steadiness, you are a business operations DNA. Now here's how that plays out. Your business performance, or what we call front office DNA, and the front office of the business is any business function that touches the customer or the market. Those are leaders, those are people-focused people, and they need to be out doing the sales, the marketing, the customer service, and interfacing with the customer. Those are drivers and expressives, or what we call lions and otters. And they really need to be doing the front office functions of the business. Then we have the back office functions of the business. And that's typically management type functions as opposed to leadership. And those are analyticals and amiables, or golden retrievers and beavers, we like to say. And they should be doing the human resources, productions, operations, business finance, and those types of business functions, which are internally focused to the business. So again, the key here, and the bottom line for all this, is to determine what your business DNA is and put the right people in the right place at the right times. And an analogy for that would be the bicycle principle. As you see here, the business operations, or the back office, provides the power to the bicycle, and the front office provides steering and watches the competitive landscape. If there's one of you in your business, you're going to have to allocate your time. Excuse me. And set priorities. If your team, you need to hire folks that can provide a good balance for you. So once we do our business DNA profiling and find out what our DNA is, and we do our growth discovery worksheet to find out if we're in growth or actually recovery, then we move on to step number 2, which is assessment. And we have a worksheet for that also in your forms package. You'll want to download that. And that's called a Small Business Growth Assessment Tools. And there we begin to introduce all the elements of a business in the front office and all the elements in the back office. And we begin to uncover the business plan model. And the key here is to go down through this form and place a priority place a priority, one, for problems that may preclude us from growing the business, competitive needs that we need to put in place to help us grow the business, and opportunities we need to identify that can speed the growth process or make the growth process faster. So assessment becomes the second step, and if you need further help on the assessment worksheet, just call the SCORE office and ask for me, and we can set up an appointment and talk about it. Step 3 is planning, and we introduce the planning model. And you can see at the bottom of the page that planning is no longer a singular obligatory event. It's an ongoing collaborative, accumulative process based on a situational planning cycle. And what that means is that um, in growth, we would create a 6 to 12 month growth plan. And typically it takes that long to move a company into growth, because growth typically requires an allocation of resources. So in your forms package, you would find the growth plan model, and you would download that and open that up. And you would transition the elements that you identified in your assessment tool, and you would move them over to the planning model. The planning model we use, step 3 planning, is a new contemporary type model that's kind of an evolution of previous planning models. You can see here on the right that in the 40s, the old push-pull strategies were used in market planning in the 4 Ps. And then in the 1980s, several marketing and advertising associations groups and professionals got together and decided that planning shouldn't be internal to the business, it should be external to the marketplace. So the planning changed a lot in the 80s and 90s. And today we use a more contemporary planning model that's designed for today's marketplace. And these are some of the elements of the model. It's aligned with the customer life cycle, which we describe in the introductory webinar. And if you haven't reviewed that, you might want to take a quick look and understand the customer life cycle, which you see there in the 4 colored boxes. It's an integrated model. It integrates all elements of the business, both front office and back office. So we don't have individual little plans, we have one plan. It's designed to be a collaborative plan where everybody in the business can collaborate on the plan. It has proven best practices. It has relevant strategies for today. And it's a fairly simple planning model, front office, back office. It's very applicable for today. It's scalable and modular for all types and sizes of business, and it's very comprehensive. It can be used for a new business startup, it can be used for growth, or it can be used for recovery, and it can be used year after year after year. So we use a newer contemporary planning model that's in your forms package, and you can download that. The planning model is called BusinessWorks. That's a SCORE brand that we use here at Dayton SCORE. And the front office is called PerformanceWorks, and that's, you can see the departments and the types of business functions that are a part of the PerformanceWorks piece of the plan. And in the back office, you can see the business functions there that are part of ProductivityWorks, which is the back office planning piece. And the object here is to create a balanced business infrastructure and create a collaborative business planning environment. Let's break that down a little bit. Scalable planning model parts, executive overview. Of course, we'll have a title page, your legal business name with your mission statement and your status. And you can see all that on the model itself. What's your primary offering? What's the scope of the plan, the duration of the plan, the purpose, and the plan structure. Once you get done with the executive overview, which is a short piece in the plan, then we move to the front office, what we call business performance. And there are 6 basic sections to that. 1 is leadership strategies. 2 is situation analysis, which we used to call the SWOT analysis. Section 3 gets into what we call positioning strategies or segmentation. In other words, who's our targeted customer, and where are they at and how we're going to get to them. Section 4 is go-to-market pushing strategies, what we call on-demand. Those are business functions that are designed to push the products and services out into the marketplace. Section 5 is competitive advantage pulling strategies, what we call in play. Those are strategies designed to bring the customer into the business. And then we have Section 6, which are what we call influencing strategies, which is where the pushing and the pulling come together, and we talk about things like sales, events, direct marketing, and so forth. So we combine proven best practices with some tested core business principles, and then we load in some solutions and strategies, and we create a strategic growth plan. We also can create a budget for the plan. It's hard to plan if we don't have a budget for it. And then we also have facilities for creating a one-page roadmap for the plan. The back office also has 6 areas. We start with resource management, and that would be a back office management DNA person or group of people who would manage back office functions, as opposed to the front office leadership who lead people. Section 2, administration, is what we call takes charge. Section 3 would be all your human resource strategies, what we call turn on. Section 4 is all your financial strategies or business functions. Section 5 is operations, and Section 6 is production. Again, we combine proven best practices with tested core business principles and pile on some solutions and strategies, and you can also create a budget for the back office part of the plan. So once we create our plan, then we go to implementation, and we review the plan. We make a decision to move ahead. We acquire some funding if we need expansion funding. We implement the plan. We measure, control the plan, manage the plan. And then we replicate the process again, identifying an additional 5 or 6 things, priority strategies that we need to implement to move the business yet further. So our formula for small business success, just a quick review, we use a proven planning model, and we provide solutions in counseling, workshops, documentation, and networking, and other resources, and we combine that with a simple 4-step process to grow your business. So the next step, the ball's in your court. We recommend, if you haven't, to review the webinar series wrap-up to find out how you can get further support. And go to our website, DaytonScore.org, and look up our workshops and our counseling services. Thank you very much for your time, and we hope you enjoyed this small business success growth webinar.